The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly as Wyatt Colton checked his fence line, squinting against the harsh light that reflected off the rocky terrain. 3 years on this isolated ridge had taught him that solitude was preferable to the alternative, memories and regrets. The Winchester rifle slung across his back had become as much a part of him as the scars he carried, both visible and hidden. The distant pop of gunfire froze him mid-stride. Through his field glasses, Colton observed three riders pursuing a lone figure across the valley floor. The lead pursuer wore an army uniform, the gold insignia of an officer catching the sunlight. The figure they chased, a young Apache woman, ran with the desperate grace of prey, knowing death followed close behind. A shot rang out. The woman stumbled, fell near the creek that marked the boundary of Colton's land. The pursuers reined in their horses, heads turning toward the sound of approaching riders in the distance. After a moment's hesitation, they retreated back into the hills, leaving their quarry for dead. Colton's jaw tightened. Not his fight, not his problem. 3 years of isolation had taught him the value of minding his own business. Yet his boots carried him forward, Winchester now gripped in calloused hands. The Apache woman lay crumpled beside the creek, blood soaking through her dress at the shoulder. Her breathing came in ragged gasps. Despite her condition, Colton noted the quality of her clothing, not the rough garments of a common tribal member, but the finely crafted attire of someone important. As he knelt beside her, something caught the sun's glare, a silver necklace around her throat, inlaid with distinctive turquoise stones, arranged in a pattern that sent a cold shock through his body. That necklace, the same one that had haunted his nightmares for 3 years. Fort Defiance, the peace delegation, the ambush, the blood. Colton lifted the unconscious woman, her weight surprisingly light against his chest. The decision had already been made, though he couldn't have explained why. Perhaps redemption came in unexpected forms, or perhaps some ghosts couldn't be outrun, only faced. His cabin stood as a testament to his solitary existence. Functional, defensible, sparse. Gun racks adorned the walls. Military maps hung beside newspaper clippings, chronicling border conflicts. A life built around the skeleton of his former self. He laid the woman on his bed, noting the rope burns on her wrists as he cleaned her wounds. The shoulder injury required the bullet's removal, a grim task he performed with the efficiency of a man who'd seen too many battlefield injuries. The woman's eyes snapped open during the procedure, her hand moving with startling speed to grab Colton's own knife from his belt, pressing it to his throat in one fluid motion. Colton didn't flinch. "If you're planning to kill me, at least let me finish getting the bullet out of your shoulder first." The knife remained steady, but surprise flickered across her face. When she spoke, it wasn't in Apache, but in perfect English. Why would a former cavalry officer help an Apache? Who says I'm helping? Maybe I just don't like seeing people shot on my land. His voice carried the gravel of disuse. Her dark eyes studied him with unnerving intensity. "I am Elena, daughter of Chief Red Thunder. They hunt me because I know too much." The knife lowered slightly. "And you will die if you help me." "Wouldn't be the first time someone's tried to kill me." Colton resumed extracting the bullet, his hands steady despite the threat. "And I've been dying slowly out here anyway." The approaching thunder of hoofbeats silenced any further conversation. Colton moved to the window, peering through a gap in the wooden shutters. 3 riders approached, one in an officer's uniform, the other 2 rough-looking men with the hard eyes of mercenaries. "One officer, 2 bounty hunters," he muttered. "Not regular army." Elena's face tightened. "Major Blake Sullivan, the man who ordered my brother killed." Recognition dawned cold and hard in Colton's gut. Sullivan, the butcher of Fort Defiance, the man who had engineered Colton's disgrace in the massacre of 5 Apache peace delegates. The cabin door rattled under a heavy knock. "Colton!" Sullivan's voice carried the false warmth of a rattlesnake's smile. "Long time no see since Fort Defiance. I'm looking for some property that belongs to the government." Colton's hand tightened on his Winchester. "What property would that be, Sullivan?" "An Apache girl stole some sensitive documents. Hand her over, and I'll forget about your desertion 3 years ago." Elena whispered from behind him. "Don't trust him. Those documents prove what really happened at Fort Defiance." Colton's eyes narrowed, a decision crystallizing in his mind. "What documents, Sullivan? Like the ones about the massacre at Fort Defiance that you covered up?" Sullivan's laugh held no humor. Still the same self-righteous fool. "Colton," his voice hardened. "You have 10 seconds to open this door before we open it for you." Colton chambered around in his Winchester. "Then I suggest you start counting." The first volley of bullets splintered the cabin's wooden walls, sending splinters flying like angry hornets. Colton shoved Elena to the floor, tipping the heavy oak table to create a shield. Years of military training took over as he returned fire through the window, his shots measured and precise. His first bullet caught one of the bounty hunters in the chest, sending the man tumbling from his horse. Sullivan and the remaining hunter scrambled for cover. "Under the rug, trap door to a root cellar," Colton told Elena between shots. "Tunnel runs about 100 yards east to an old stable. Go." "What about you?" "I'll keep them busy." Another shot, another miss as Sullivan ducked behind a water trough. Elena hesitated, then asked the question that had been hanging between them. "Why did you leave the uniform, Colton?" Colton's jaw tightened as he reloaded. 3 years ago at Fort Defiance, I was a captain stationed there. Apache peace delegation came to negotiate a trading agreement." His voice turned bitter. "Sullivan and some other officers didn't want peace. They wanted war." Elena's eyes widened. "The Fort Defiance massacre. 5 Apache killed, including a young scout wearing that silver necklace you have." Colton fired again, keeping Sullivan pinned down. "I tried to stop it, but I hesitated too long. Court-martialed me for firing on fellow officers, stripped my rank. I left rather than serve under butchers. The scout was Flying Arrow, my cousin." Elena touched the necklace. "You tried to save him." "And failed." The admission burned like acid. "Now go, before I fail you too." Sullivan's voice carried across the yard. "That girl's got documents that'll put me and some very important people in prison, Colton. Think about what side you want to be on." Colton positioned his hat on the barrel of his spare rifle, raising it just enough to draw fire while Elena slipped through the trapdoor. Sullivan's men took the bait, sending bullets tearing through the decoy. Once Elena was safely below, Colton made his move, firing rapidly to create cover as he dove through the cabin's back window, rolling to his feet despite the glass cut stinging his arms. He sprinted for the trees, Sullivan's curses and gunfire following close behind. At the old stable, Elena waited with 2 horses already saddled. Colton retrieved a Colt revolver from a hidden cache, checking its ammunition before handing it to Elena. "You know how to use this?" She took it with practiced ease. "My brother taught me to shoot when I was 12. They rode hard into the hills, following game trails too narrow for Sullivan's men to follow easily. After an hour of hard riding, they reached a cave hidden behind a stand of scrub pine, one of Colton's emergency hideouts. Inside, Elena pulled a leather pouch from inside her dress, emptying its contents onto a flat rock. Documents spilled out, military orders, contracts, maps with Apache settlements circled in red. "My brother Swift Arrow was a scout for the Army. He found these in Sullivan's office before they killed him." Her voice remained steady, but rage burned in her eyes. "They planned to attack our villages, make it look like we broke the peace treaties." Colton examined the papers, his expression darkening as he recognized signatures. "Colonel Nathaniel Grant, Major Sullivan, Captain Harlow, all at Fort Defiance. He held up another document. And look at this. James Westland, owner of Westland Armory. Weapons contracts, Elena confirmed. Millions of dollars if war breaks out. Colton saw the bigger picture forming. This isn't just about weapons contracts. These attack plans would void all existing treaties, opening millions of acres of Apache land for the railroad and mining interests. Land, weapons, gold, all paid for with Apache blood, Elena said bitterly. The sound of horses approaching silenced them both. Colton moved to the cave entrance, counting at least 6 riders approaching through the trees. Sullivan had brought reinforcements. Colton, Sullivan's voice echoed off the rocks. I know you're in there. Give me the girl and the documents, and I'll let you live. Wyatt turned to Elena. The cave has another exit, a narrow passage that leads to the backside of the hill. We need to split up. You know Santa Fe? Elena nodded. Agent Daniel Cooper at the territorial office. He and my father have a peace agreement. He'll believe me. Colton checked his ammunition, then handed Elena a second revolver. I'll draw their attention. Get those documents to Cooper. Sullivan's voice came again, closer now. Last chance, Colton. You're outnumbered and outgunned. Elena grabbed Colton's arm. Come with me. You don't have to die here. Colton shook his head. Someone has to stop them. I failed at Fort Defiance. His eyes held a determination that had been missing for 3 years. Not this time. Elena unclasped the silver necklace from around her throat, pressing it into Colton's hand. This isn't you failing. This is you redeeming yourself. As Elena disappeared into the back passage, Colton turned toward the cave entrance, a revolver in each hand. Sullivan, you want to finish what we started at Fort Defiance? Come and get it. The cave erupted in gunfire and smoke as Sullivan's men charged in. Colton moved like a ghost through the shadows, using the cave's terrain to his advantage. His first shots dropped 2 attackers, but a return bullet grazed his arm, sending fire through his nerves. Sullivan's voice echoed through the cavern. You ruined my career once at Fort Defiance, Colton. Not happening again. You ruined yourself when you murdered those Apache delegates. Colton fired back, both with words and lead. Sullivan and the remaining bounty hunter split up, trying to flank Colton. The bounty hunter moved closer, tracking Colton's shadow against the cave wall. From the darkness behind, an arrow whistled through the air, finding its mark in the bounty hunter's throat. Apache warriors materialized from the shadows, led by an older man in a chief's regalia. Sullivan fired wildly in panic, but Colton's well-placed shot caught him in the leg, sending him crashing to the ground. Colton advanced, gun aimed at Sullivan's face. This is for Flying Arrow, for Swift Arrow, and for all the others you murdered. The Apache chief placed a hand on Colton's gun, gently pushing it down. No, Captain Colton, not this way. Justice, not vengeance. Chief Red Thunder's weathered face showed no emotion as he gazed down at Sullivan. My scouts have been tracking you for 3 days. We know who you are and what you have done. Elena appeared from behind the Apache warriors. I found them on the trail to Santa Fe, Father. Sullivan struggled to sit up, his face twisted with pain and hatred. This is a military matter. She stole classified documents. Red Thunder's voice cut like steel. Silence! Documents about killing my people to steal our land. They're planning to create a war, Colton explained to the chief, for weapons contracts and railroad land. Red Thunder ordered Sullivan bound. We take him to Agent Cooper in Santa Fe. Let your law deal with him. An Apache healer tended to Colton's wounds, applying herbal poultices to stop the bleeding. The chief watched thoughtfully. Elena says you tried to save Flying Arrow at Fort Defiance, and now you have saved my daughter. Colton looked at the silver necklace in his palm. I couldn't save your nephew, I reacted too slowly. Red Thunder placed a hand on Colton's shoulder. Not too slowly. You were the only one who acted at all. The others did not even try. 2 weeks later, Colton stood outside the Santa Fe courthouse where the hearings were underway. Sullivan and his conspirators had been arrested. Colonel Grant faced court-martial. James Westland of Westland Armory was under investigation for bribery. Agent Cooper emerged from the courthouse, nodding to Colton. "They won't escape justice, Colton. The evidence is too damning." Cooper handed Colton an official letter. "I've spoken with Washington. They want to restore your rank and clear your record. It's late, but it's what they can offer." Colton considered the letter, glancing toward Elaine and Red Thunder, standing nearby. "I don't fit in the Army anymore, Cooper. But if you need someone who understands both sides of the story," Cooper smiled. "The Territorial Office is looking for a special representative to work with the Apache tribes. Someone with military experience, knowledge of the Apache, and not afraid to get their hands dirty." Elena approached, her eyes meeting his with newfound respect. "When you tried to save Flying Arrow at Fort Defiance, you were alone in your stand against injustice. Now you stand with the Apache." She placed her hand briefly on his arm. "My father says you have the heart of a warrior, even without the uniform." Colton felt something shift within him, the weight of failure he'd carried from Fort Defiance finally beginning to lift. This woman had seen him at his most vulnerable, yet recognized strength where he had seen only weakness. Red Thunder presented Colton with a gift, a silver bracelet with Apache symbols. "This marks not just an alliance between peoples, but the rebirth of a warrior who found his true path." Colton gazed toward the distant mountains that had been both his prison and sanctuary. "New job, new beginning. This is exactly what I needed." As they prepared to leave, Elena asked, "Won't you miss your solitary life in the mountains?" Colton touched the silver necklace now around his neck, then straightened his shoulders with renewed purpose. "For 3 years I've lived in the shadow of the past. Today I step into the light." With deliberate movements, he removed his old worn coat, the last remnant of his hermit life, and replaced it with the jacket Cooper had provided, bearing the insignia of the Territorial Office. "Sullivan tried to bury the truth," Colton said, his voice carrying a strength absent for years. "Now I'll make sure it sees daylight." As the sun set behind the Arizona mountains, Wyatt Colton mounted his horse alongside Elena and Red Thunder. The man who had hidden in the highlands was gone, replaced by someone who had found purpose and honor once again. The accidental encounter with an Apache chief's daughter had led him not to more darkness, but to redemption in the most unexpected way. Sometimes the path back to life comes from the very place you least expect it. And for Wyatt Colton, that journey had only just begun.